Hi, thanks for joining us here at ODI. We're here to discuss President Trump's momentous announcement that the US is to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement. With me here is Alex Thayer, who's the Executive Director of the Overseas Development Institute. Alex, first of all, do you want to tell us, hi there, do you want to tell us, obviously huge news, but how much does it matter in the world that the US is no longer part of the Paris Agreement?
I think that the U.S. pulling out of the Paris Accord is actually going to have profound effects in a couple of different ways. First, it's really important to remember that the United States is itself still the second largest polluter in the world, and per capita far outstrips most other countries. Americans use more energy, everything, and so the U.S. not fulfilling its commitments means that there will be a lot more pollution going into the atmosphere, contributing to global warming. And it's true that a lot of cities and companies have said they're going to fulfill their commitments anyway, and that's terrific. But it's really important to remember that the U.S. federal government drives a lot of action. Our investment in new technologies, our investment in things like satellites that let us know what's going on around the world, that have alerted us to the problems of climate change. All of those things are critical to maintain, and I think that what President Trump was saying is that those things are going to be drawn down. The second area is that the United States has been heretofore the largest donor in the world, helping other countries to reach their Paris commitments. So I was in Uganda and Kenya last week, and Uganda and Kenya are among sub-Saharan African countries that are starting to grow. Right now they don't pollute a lot because they don't have a lot of energy and a lot of industry, but they are starting to grow. And the impact of that's going to be that they have a choice to make, one of two paths to take. They can either take the path that we took and burn a lot of coal and oil and continue to pollute in the ways that's causing global warming, or they can take a greener path. But that greener path needs help. It needs support from countries like the U.S., from the United Nations, from Great Britain and other donors. And the United States pulling back from that is going to mean that decisions that are made today are going to have profound consequences for many years to come.
So I want to pick you up on a couple of those points. But if you want to ask Alex some questions, please do post them on Facebook and we'll pick them up as we go along. So Alex, there's been a lot of talk about this UN Green Climate Fund, the US pulling its funds out of that. Can you just tell us what that actually is?
First, let me tell you something that it's not, because President Trump spoke about the Green Climate Fund and he made some real mistakes in his speech, which I hope they'll have a chance to fact correct. First of all, the idea for the Green Climate Fund was founded at the Copenhagen Climate Summit in 2009. And at that summit, countries all around the world that eventually signed the Paris Agreement committed that there would be a contribution of $100 billion a year by 2020 to help the world phase its energy, phase its industrial habits to meet the challenges of climate change and lowering pollution. And the Green Climate Fund was one thing that was set up to help channel those resources. It is not $100 billion from donors. That $100 billion is meant to come from all countries and private sector alike. But the Green Climate Fund was set up to help take resources from countries that want to help contribute in a unified way and share the burden with each other, which is something that President Trump has spoken about a lot, to help countries make that transition.
And the US had pledged $3 billion, paid $1 billion, so there's $2 billion outstanding there. What kind of impact do you think it is going to have if they take that out of the fund?
Well, right now, as you've said, they have pledged about a third of the resources to the fund. Again, let me give you a really concrete example. Last year in South Africa, they were considering building a new coal-fired power plant. And the question came up about what would it take for them, instead of investing in that coal-fired power plant, to invest in renewable energy resources, or at least much cleaner energy resources instead. And there are costs to that. Now, of course, the long-term costs of the coal are far, far greater, but the near-term costs of building those plants, it was going to be a little bit higher to go the renewable option. So they were willing to pay, let's say, 90% of the way, but they needed that extra 10% to make the right decision and help them to build a cleaner future, both for themselves and for the world. And things like the Green Climate Fund help that little extra amount to make the right decision. And if you don't have those resources available, then the wrong decisions are going to be made. And that power plant, as we know, is going to be in place for 20 or 30 years.
Of course, a lot of the world reaction to President Trump's announcement is that it's not going to make any difference, that China's going to step up, India's going to step up, the EU's going to stay the course. Do you think there's an opportunity now for others to show leadership here?
Not only an opportunity, but I think it's absolutely critical for other countries to show leadership. And we've seen this. We've seen China and India, who have already each dramatically outstripped their Paris goals in terms of the amount of renewable resources that they've put on the grid just in the last couple of years. So they have not only said that they are recommitting, but they're actually demonstrating really important progress. Major cities like Paris and a couple of others today announced that they were also recommitting to pick up some of the slack, that they were going to really press forward. And of course, all over the United States, we've had states like California, we've had businesses like Apple and Walmart declare that they are going to stick with their commitments. And so, in a way, it has forced many who deeply believe in this agenda, both as an economic agenda and as a health agenda for this planet, to step forward and redouble their commitments.
So do you think in some ways we might be worrying a bit too much about this?
Well, I don't. And the reason I don't is that because if you look at the science, if you look at the fact that the 15 of the last 16 years have been the hottest ever recorded, if you look at what scientists are now saying about warming trends, they're probably even faster than had been predicted, what seemed like dire predictions a few years ago. I think that there's a lot of concerns that even the Paris commitments might not get us to the place where we will stop warming sufficiently. There was a major announcement in the last couple of weeks about another crack appearing in a major ice shelf in Antarctica. I was in Uganda and Kenya, where there is a drought happening right now. Those drought conditions in a number of places like East Africa are worse than they've been for many years. And so we see these things happening now. The circumstances are dire. And it is great that others are stepping into the breach, but there is no replacement for the United States to lead both in terms of dealing with its own problems and helping the rest of the world to make that transition.
And Alex, final question. We've seen a few of President Trump's announcements unwind pretty quickly, but because of opposition from the courts, challenges by civil society, it's somehow become a big announcement that's become modified. Could this happen here, or is this much more clear-cut?
I think with the grandeur that they attempted to put into this announcement and the build-up to it, it would be very, very hard for President Trump to step back from it. But I think we will see, as we have seen to many of his other policies, a meaningful resistance. And what I mean by that is that I think that many states, businesses will continue to step forward and not only say, well, we're willing to do what we agreed to do at Paris, but that we'll actually work harder so that it's not only that we're not abandoning our commitments for the people at home, but that we don't become the place, the laughingstock of the world is seen as turning our backs on what is clearly one of the most important challenges of our generation.
Alex, thank you very much. And if you want to follow Alex more, he's on Twitter, tweeting about this a lot at the moment. And your Twitter handle is
@Theoristan.
An obvious one. But if you also want to read analysis and research on this, please go to odi.org. Thanks very much.